Hi, welcome back to On the Table, where we're digging into the beautiful, sometimes excruciating, often comical messiness of what it means to be human over drinks, because I happen to think that vices here and there are important and we can't yet ingest psychedelics on camera one day. I'm your host, Serena Smith. Behind the camera is my director and husband, Ian, alongside our small and mighty crew. And if you've tuned in before, you know where we are. The beautiful Zinqué restaurant in Venice, California. My guest today is the absolutely delectable Zane Phillips, who I'll tell you all about in just a second. And of course, per always, we are coming to you live, baby. So this is our third episode, which feels like a small victory, yay. And we shot our second episode a couple of days after Christmas. I was in the throes of some post-holiday end-of-year blues, which I reckon many of you can probably relate to. And try as I did to snap myself out of it, I just couldn't fully get there. So I went into the shoot feeling a little bit off and frankly pretty mad at myself for it. So I'm sitting across from a literal kindness expert, the wonderful Houston Kraft, and as I'm asking him questions about the importance of not only how to be kind to other people, but also to yourself, my inner critic is raging. The irony of this now seems very funny to me, but at the time I couldn't even see what was going on. It felt very serious. It's screaming at me that my questions are unfocused and that my energy is too low, and how dare I ask all of you to tune in and Houston to be here and my crew to be working on my behalf. And I become fully convinced that I am shitting the bed, which is a phrase I wish didn't exist in the English language, but if the shoe fits. So the shoot ends and I'm just like filled with this shame of perceived failure. I share my feelings with Ian, who gently reminds me that I'm being ridiculous. So I turn to fucking rage texting some of my friends who also tell me that I'm being way too hard on myself. But I'm so inside my own rightness, inside my own suffering, that I can't hear any of that. And then we go home and we watch back the episode, and I am stunned to recognize that I'm nowhere near as bad as I thought. Like, it's a good interview. I'm good. And the shame vanishes like that, right? Which is amazing, except that the shame was able to go away because I had the luxury of being able to observe the footage after the fact and recognize that my understanding of what I thought was going on in that moment was incorrect. Most of the time, for most of us, we don't get that opportunity. There is no tape to run back. And so we're left with these skewed perceptions and ruminations that definitely don't serve us, and I think most of the time are probably moderately to wildly untrue. So I just want to remind those of you out there who have a sometimes loud inner critic and have the sneaking suspicion that that's probably a lot of us. Let this story serve as a reminder not to believe all of the whack shit that your brain tells you. Feelings are not facts, and we are not our thoughts. I think one of the most remarkable lessons that I've learned over the past couple of years, and it's a lesson that I have to learn, there's dogs in here, and it's a lesson that I have to learn clearly over and over again, is that the antidote to almost any negative feeling you're having is presence. You cannot be fully dropped in and anxiety-ridden at the same time. It's maybe not easy to enact, but I do think it is that simple. You know, I think most people in my life think of me as a pretty intensely confident person. Yeah. And I am, truly. And also, sometimes there's this crazy lady running amok in my head. Both things can be true. Life is messy, and we contain multitudes. Speaking of multitudes, let me tell you about my guest, Zane Phillips. This man is an undeniable triple threat, a true thespian of both screen and stage, a wonderful singer, and a hell of a dancer, which is how we met. And he's had a wild couple of years. You may know him from Fire Island, which you should go watch for the 2nd or 27th time, from Glamorous, from Legacies, maybe from your dreams. But amazingly, just prior to him landing those roles, he was actually really seriously considering leaving the industry to become an engineer. Brains, beauty, talent, the man has it all. But honestly, all of it pales in comparison to the way that he walks through the world, with playfulness and generosity and a spirit that is larger than his biceps. And I mean, look at those biceps.
I did arm day yesterday.
Yes, you did. As always, if you have questions for Zane, throw them in the chat. I'll be asking some of those later. And so, you know, anything that we reference in this interview, books, movies, spiritual guides, queer icons, will all get added to the show description on YouTube within about a day, so you don't have to go hunting for it after the fact.
I could have just listened to you do that for an hour.
I was like, the actor is here.
No, oh my God. I feel like
I
feel like I want to speak so much to what you were talking about, because I was like in the exact same place. Also, first of all, should we?
Oh my God, cheers, yes.
Cheers. These look delightful. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, we tried.
Yeah, talk to me. Did that resonate?
Absolutely. I was in the exact, ooh, that's good.
Okay, let's leave it this way.
Okay, great. I was in the exact same place at the end of the year. I think I have never had a holiday season that I wanted to be over as much as I wanted this one to be over. So I think it's really funny. We were like in the same place there. I think with the strike, with everything that had happened last year, I just needed a sense of normalcy, and holidays, as good as they can be and as healing as it can be to be with family, I was just like, I need the work, I need the focus, I need to have my brain on something that is not my own brain. But anyway, so I was there with you, and then also this idea of, I love that idea that basically anxiety and shame can't coexist with presence, because I think that's so true. It's something that I have to work with a lot of the time because I can so get in my own head.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how simple the answer is. Like sometimes I'll be somewhere and I'll be thinking to myself, am I having a good time? Do I like this person? Why aren't they asking me any questions? You know what I mean? Like you're just like, you sort of spiral, and then if I just stop for a moment and I think, stop thinking about your own internal experience and just get really present with what's happening, and it dissipates, right? Like it's such, I don't know, it's like we complicate things so deeply for ourselves.
Right.
And then the answer is actually so simple.
Yeah. We have a lot of stories to tell ourselves too about, like, I have always told myself that I'm socially anxious because at one point, you know, it's just, you're a kid and that's true. But I think I held on to that for far longer than I ever needed to, you know, because now, you know, I've been able to, I'm a high functioning socially anxious person now. You know, I feel very outgoing, and, you know, I'm still an introvert at the end of the day, but.
Do you actually still actively feel anxiety in social situations?
Oh, yeah, a lot of times, yeah. I think because I always drum this up to growing up queer, and maybe honestly it's probably the same thing when you grow up as a woman. This sort of hypervigilance of where you are in the space and how people perceive you. I think we probably do it for different reasons, but yeah, I think I've always had, my brain is always racing 100 miles an hour to figure out, what does this person feel about me? How are they enjoying themselves? Do they feel special when I'm in this conversation with them? You know, and then you have bigger groups, and the narrative becomes, am I holding the room well? Am I, you know, it can be any number of things that you can feel. I mean, God, the gym. I get so socially anxious in the gym. I having to ask somebody how many sets you got left terrifies me.
That's what causes you to spiral. It's always like so weird.
Yes.
It's like often like the most minor things.
Yeah, and you know, it's.
I hate to ask people where the bathroom is. Why? Why is that the thing?
The way I
can talk to a wall.
I will go to a restaurant, and I will simply like circumnavigate the entire dining room because I don't want to ask. I want to know. I want people to think that I know. We want people to think that we know things.
Oh my God. Okay, this is such a big thing. So like when Ian and I travel together, he's like a really big fan of just kind of like fly by the seat of your pants and like just feel it out and be spontaneous and see what presents itself. And I'm a big fan of like, do all the research and then don't over itinerize, like leave some space. But I always want to know that I'm like in the right neighborhood, on the right street, and then from there there's like space for exploration. But I'm also like hyper vigilant about like cultural customs and wanting it to look like I know what I'm doing. Like
Absolutely.
He navigates us always from a public transportation perspective, because I have zero sense of direction. I'm very traditionally gendered in that way, but also because I am just so terrified of looking like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you would rather go out of your way 40 minutes because you took the wrong train, stay on it for a couple stops, and then get off and then go get, like.
Which is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Yeah. It's that. It's this like sense of needing to feel like you've done the research, and I think maybe that's just, I think that's definitely identities that we've constructed for ourselves over the years. Like I can tell we're kindred in that way.
100%, 100%. And we can talk about this, but it's like we both come from pretty academic backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
We were high performers in school, and so I think in a way that can be really beautiful, but in a way that if it tips past a certain point can also potentially be toxic.
Yeah.
It's like we're so accustomed to doing the work, that sometimes it's like, just fucking take it easy.
Right. When also, it's like you're not getting graded on how you travel. Like
I'm grading myself on everything.
right. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like you can look like a tourist. Like nobody's gonna be mad at you.
No.
Like tourists exist.
No.
But it's a hard thing to internalize.
And like, we live 2 blocks off of Abbot Kinney, which is like tourist central in LA.
Yeah.
And I never feel even an ounce of judgment toward anybody who's obviously a tourist in LA. I'm like, great, you're living your best life. I'm so happy you're here.
That was the thing when I was living in New York. Whenever somebody would ask me for directions on the subway, it was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whenever you could tell somebody how to navigate, the craziness that is the New York transit system.
Yeah. That's power.
It's power. Like you carry that with you the rest of the day.
Just the chest puffs out a little bit more.
Absolutely.
I think there's something so interesting that you brought up about walking through the world with the awareness of being perceived.
Yeah.
And I guess to some degree, I think that anybody could fall prey to this, but I do think that it happens in particular populations more than others.
Right. Where
if you're strikingly beautiful.
No, I mean I think
if you're a woman.
Yeah. We're in situations where where perhaps it's important for you to have your surroundings assessed.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel, I mean, anybody who like knows my story knows I like grew up in Texas, very small town conservative area where, basically if you're queer or if you're different, you need to get ahead of the curve. You need to know what the narrative is before other people do. And it's really funny because I still find myself with that inclination nowadays. Now that I am, I'm more of a public figure, I guess, and I'm still very much concerned with, all right, like, how am I coming off? Like, what is the narrative here? It's a really interesting thing. It's an interesting conversation. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm like jumping over everywhere.
Oh, I love it.
I'm like, I don't know if this is how this works.
It.
It's something that I think is fascinating that Taylor Swift is such a figure in the zeitgeist right now, because I think she's the sort of master of assessing what the narrative is and then speaking to it and playing with it.
And controlling it so masterfully.
Yeah, it is really masterful work.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that I've gonna be like, okay, it's not necessarily bad to want to know how you're coming across or what the sort of prevailing narrative is about you. It can be a sort of power as well. But it's just funny that it came from such a place of needing to be sure of my surroundings and needing to have some security, especially in times where I really wasn't sure how people were receiving me.
Do you have a sense of what the narrative is about you right now?
Maybe. I think
I'm just thinking of like stunt country people just going wild in the chat. Like, I'll tell you what the fucking narrative is.
We're gonna hope we got stunt country people in the chat. I miss my girls.
We miss you.
So I do think from what I've gleaned and from what I've deemed it responsible to observe, just for myself and my own sanity. You know, it's kind of two-pronged. Like on one side, I see a lot of people who feel very very glad that, you know, someone can be a young actor and out and, you know, being ambitious perhaps, or really, you know, not being apologetic for it. I can't say that was necessarily how I planned it.
Really?
Or yeah, like I say this all the time, but there was never a point in my career where somebody's like, well, do you want to go back in the closet now? You know, like nobody said that. And of course I was, you know, I went to theater school, so I was gay by week 2. You know, like nobody. There was nothing.
If you're not, you're out.
Exactly. Some people really did take some time though, and God bless them. It couldn't have been me, because I needed to try it. I needed to kiss a boy.
Is that when it happened? It wasn't until you were
in college. Yeah.
Wow.
And so.
Because it felt too dangerous in Texas.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I will say, I went to theater camp summer after my junior year of high school, and that opened my eyes a little bit, and that did let me sort of see a little bit more of what was out there and who was out there, and so I started becoming perhaps a little bit more comfortable with that at that point. But yeah, it wasn't. There was no possibility of me coming out before college. I was like, I'm going out of state. I don't care. Like, you know, eventually I'll come home enough times without a girlfriend that my parents will be like, what's going on? What are you doing? And so, you know, yeah, and so, you know, it happened a little faster than that, but ultimately I'm grateful. It was kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid, but at the very least I was in a sterilized environment, you know?
Sterilized.
Yeah, like I was using the Band-Aid metaphor. Like I opened the wound, but it wasn't going to get infected. You know?
Right. It's funny. It played out exactly the same way for my sister.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she had a boyfriend all 4 years of high school. She's a field hockey player. And she got to college, and it was like a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
because suddenly, it's especially if you're in an area. I mean, for me, like theater, right? I realized nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
Even the people I was scared most of, which was the straight boys.
Right.
They didn't care. They knew what they were getting into. Like, if you're a straight boy in theater, chances are you're not gonna be like, gay people. You know, you don't care.
Yeah.
And you know, and they end up becoming some of your strongest aides and allies. You know, and so. But yeah, how did we get onto this?
We're talking about the narrative that you feel like is playing out about you now.
God, you're so good at keeping a hold of my 1,000 threads.
I had some caffeine today.
I know, I have to.
I've got the shakes. Not used to it.
Yeah, so I definitely think, there is a sort of responsibility that I feel in sort of being, I guess, that kind of figure. And obviously, I mean, there's so many people who have done it before me. Like, I'm not saying I'm the first or the only or whatever. You know, I think we do have a cohort of young queer actors who are really like making a splash.
Yeah.
You know, that being said, I'm definitely, you know, I do have my sights set on ambitious things. You know, like I do feel like I'm uniquely positioned to do, you know, action roles or like superhero roles or whatever.
Hell
you know,
yes.
I think.
It's kind of surprised that nobody's been. That door hasn't been knocked on.
And what's
yet.
funny is that there's just not. I don't know. I mean, it's a funny time in media, period, I guess. But you know, I think something that maybe works to my detriment as well as my advantage is I do consider myself a bit of a chameleon, you know, actor-wise. Like I feel really comfortable doing character work and taking on something completely different. You know, I never want to do the same thing twice. But with what that means is I feel like my field of what I do and what I can do, it feels a little unfocused. And so that's been a big part of this like strike time, and then afterwards is sort of narrowing the focus and being like, all right, well, what, first of all, it's the column of what are your talents, what are you good at, what does the world want you to do. Secondly, like what can you do, what do you feel comfortable doing, and third of all is what you have the opportunity to do. And so right now it's just a matter of trying to align those things. And I think that's the thing, is like, if I don't swing big, nobody's gonna swing big for me.
Oh my God.
That's been my experience. This entire time is you really have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. No one's gonna do it for you.
No.
Even when you have a great team.
Totally, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I was in New York. I'm used to the hustle. That's where I feel very comfortable. And so, there are times where I'm like, I wish this was easier. I wish that opportunities would fall in my lap a little bit more. I wish that people would see, my talent a little more clearly. There's all these sorts of things that you wish for yourself. At the same time, I have that foundation of knowing that I can work. I can work for what I want, and if something doesn't come easy, that's fine. Nothing's ever come easy.
It's more satisfying when it wasn't just handed to you, right?
Yeah. I'm definitely.
I mean, it's annoying. It's annoying that that's the case.
It's and you try to feel the annoyance and let it pass, and let it be a motivation for sure. But ultimately, I mean, like, So I think that's part of my narrative that I'm sort of trying to parse out and trying to feel out. I think also there's probably a lot of people who see me and think that I'm not
a lot of the things that you are. Yeah.
I do find people always expect me to be like a little meaner.
I expected you to be meaner.
No.
Oh my God, let me tell you this. So
wait, what?
When I first saw you at this queer line dancing movement that we're both a part of called Stud Country, shout out to Stud Country, our home away from home. I immediately started referring to you as the Adonis to my friends for, I think, obvious reasons. And then one night you came to talk to me, and I was like so delighted to learn that you were like smart and witty and kind of a fucking goof. And then you walked away, and I was like disappointed in myself for not having assumed that would be the case. And I was just like, what? Like I was like, my whole shtick is like leaning into the dimensionality of people, and here I was like siphoning you down to one dimension. And it got me thinking, right? Because I think that was my experience of you in the realm of seeing you in real life, dancing your ass off.
Yeah.
And then there's also like what people see on Instagram, which is a lot of really beautiful,
totally. It's very curated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. As it is for everybody.
Totally.
But I wonder, like, I think this is also something that you can just fall prey to when somebody is confronted with pretty striking beauty. Like, do you feel like, do you enter interactions understanding that you're making such a strong first impression that there might be something that you have to overcome?
I guess it's hard. I mean, I think I could drive myself crazy because also there's the layer of like never really seeing what other people see in you. Like that's also the thing is I'm like
you don't know.
That's fine if people think I'm good looking. I don't agree. Like or I'll you know what I mean? This is just like the traditional things that you tell yourself over the years, and again, I've done a lot of work to try and up my value. I get it's like I work out, but that makes me feel good. I use sunscreen, like I really do. I mean,
is that the whole skincare regimen?
I mean,
sunscreen?
No. I'm doing more now too. Actually, I'm expanding. But but I still, I've always had a very deep well of insecurity. I've always had because again, like I grew up never feeling like I had much to offer. I guess. It's a very somber child. So
really,
yeah.
Your insecurity was manifesting in multiple different spheres?
Yeah.
Or were there spaces where you were like, I feel confident here and less confident here?
Maybe that's why theater became such a treasured thing for me because I mean, one, it was just by virtue of being in a small town, and we had a community theater that was actually pretty good, but they needed boys, and so like when I would do shows, there was very much energy of like, thank God, thank you, and so I think that was the first time that I was like, like I am of some value to this situation, and I think that helped me sort of latch onto it a little bit more, and obviously like I was very academics focused as well, so that was a big part of it. But I think I never really shook the feeling of like you have to be worth more than. Also, like, appearance to me has always felt very, like, everyone tells you from a very young age, like, beauty fades, like, you better have something else to fall back on. And so I've never felt like I could trust it. Like, someone tells me that, I'm good looking, and I'm like, well, I can't do anything with that. Like, I'm gonna be a piece of wrinkled paper by the age of 80, you know what I mean? Like, it's, like what else is my life gonna be that's not the way that I look? And so, but, I think, now, again, I just try not to think about it because also I think being down on yourself so much is its own form of vanity.
Sure.
It is
oh my God.
a self-obsession,
yeah,
right?
It's like just stop, think about something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost a lot of times you think that you're being cute and demure and you're just being annoying, like you just have to let go of thinking about yourself. So that's my big thing that I've tried to do within the past few years, just not think about myself that much in terms of like how and just focus on literally like the being present, right? The solution to this anxiety, the solution to this insecurity is the fact that like, all right, how can I be here with you and make you feel seen and heard, and then suddenly it's like it doesn't matter, but it's really funny because I remember specifically we were doing Sin Wagon. And
which is a dance that we do.
Yeah.
And damn near kills people.
It truly is.
Exertion heavy.
Yes, and it was at the end of the night, so it was a humid day, so there was a lot of moisture coming from the vents. And I think that like the first interaction we had, like the first true interaction we had, because I was intimidated by you. I was like, shit, she's so good.
I kind of realized that as we were having the conversation, and then I was like having this out of body experience, like. He's intimidated by me?
No, because it's. I mean that's the thing. When somebody, I think there's something about being a good dancer, that is such a power. You know what I mean? When someone can enter into a space and feel confident in their body.
Yeah.
It like that automatically can put your stock so high with a lot of people, I think.
Yes.
But anyway, no, I was doing Sin Wagon. I think you were not doing it for some reason. You were just like standing on the corner.
Yeah, sometimes.
And
I'm
I was
dead.
doing like the bell kick.
Yeah.
And I slipped and fell right on my ass.
I missed that.
And you were like, oh my, y'all were like, are you okay? I think it was like it was you and Adrian. You were like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. And then I don't know. I think I don't know if you remember that exactly being the moment, but I certainly was like, okay, like this girl is cool. She laughed at me a little bit, and it's good, and like in a way that made me feel good, like you were not trying to spare my feelings. You were just like.
People who are close to me in my life know this. I like think that I have such a sense of maturity and such a deep well of empathy for people, but
and
if
then
you
see
fall,
a truly
oh my God.
a 220-pound man like fall flat on his, because also
all bets are off.
Also, it is kind of, seeing a big dude do that dance is kind of funny sometimes. Like you have to haul ass.
You have to haul ass.
Like you've never seen an elephant,
It's hard for me.
Yeah, like
and I'm barely, 5 feet off the ground.
That's true. You have all the advantages in the world.
Do you want to have a redemptive moment right now? Can we just show a little bit of the clip of me and Zane on stage? We cannot play the music for this because it's to Britney Spears' Slave for you, so just imagine it in your head. We absolutely cannot clear that shit, and we do not want the stream being taken down by, Britney's estate.
Yeah.
But you're watching it. He's very good. Well, I'm always like, since I started teaching, I'm always trying to convince people to go for the second spin. I'm like watching this video, I'm like, he's doing the double every time.
That is the thing. you know, everyone personalizes the dances in their own way.
Yeah.
A lot of people really have a good facility with the flow, and they add like little extra like kicks and stuff. The only thing that I can do is add an extra spin. That's really the only thing I can do.
Oh my God, please. I'm a one-trick pony also.
You know.
Yeah. I've really developed a reputation.
Yeah, no, because I don't know, like I love a Shanae, you know, like I am not a dancer, but goddamn I can spot, you know.
And that's the key. I think there's something that is so I mean, it really changed my life.
Yeah.
Stud country.
Yeah.
Last year was a really tough
Same.
year for a lot of people for a great many reasons.
Yeah.
And it kind of came along like this lifeline, I think, for many of us. And for me, that's tied up in the fact that like dancing is my purest and first love, and it's a space where, as you just reflected, where I feel very deeply embodied,
Yes,
very much in my power, very much in my sensuality. And I think that was a really important thing for me to remind myself of. I actually don't know if I would have started this show had it not been for Stud, because it reminded me of what it feels like to stand in my power.
Totally.
I was like, oh, this is who the fuck you are, you know?
Oh, wow.
But there's also something so beautiful about being in these queer spaces that are just so expressive and so joyful. And I not only do you have Stud, but you have been tracking this career now for the last couple of years, where in your theater days you were playing straight roles, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And then to some degree you were like, fuck this. And now you've been playing queer role after queer role.
Yeah.
You've been on a number of sets that have been like largely populated by queer people. Can you like thread the needle for me in terms of like how those spaces feel potentially different from other spaces you find yourself in?
Totally. I mean, I think, you know, it's interesting. Again, like there truly is no one to tell you at the beginning of your career, like, this is what you should do, this is how it's going to go, this is how it's going to feel. I think, again, there's a lot of really, you know, people who have been in the industry for a long time, who have been fighting the fight, have been, you know, fighting these like uphill battles a lot of the time. But things have changed so rapidly that nobody really can, like, you can't give advice to someone 4 years younger than you, because
it's a different game.
The experience is going to be completely different, you know, already. And so, you know, so I think coming more into like the film TV side of things, it was a lot of gut instinct of saying, all right, well, this is a project that wants me, this is a project that appreciates what I have, therefore I'm going to go for it, you know. And I think, again, I'm sort of, I just happen to be, you know, one of the guys who sort of, I think, fits a certain type, or, you know, like can enter into a certain place. Like, again, I enter into a room.
Can you own it? Come on.
Yeah, I know. You're right. I think, okay.
You're so hot.
Well, and not that there's like tons of hot queer actors out there, but I do think that I think that because of my upbringing, maybe, and because of, again, like what, you know, how I've worked on with my body, whatever. When I enter into a space, anything that I do is like a statement on masculinity, you know, and so I think
whether you want it to be or not.
Exactly. And, you know, I always really love playing straight roles for that reason, because I do feel like I have a really interesting grasp on straightness, because it's something that we as queer people study for years. Right. As straight people, like in the unfortunate hierarchy of things, right? I always say, like, the higher you up in the hierarchy, you're not forced to think about anything that's underneath you, unless you very diligently decide to do that work. Right.
Whereas wherever you are, further down the pyramid, you have no choice but to be deeply entrenched and educated, right?
Totally.
As a woman,
totally.
I'm pretty studied in what it's like to be a
Absolutely.
straight white guy. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
you don't have an option.
Totally. And obviously, actors act, and as I said, like, I love playing characters. I love doing the work. I love being able to approach something from, you know, what initially feels like an outsider's perspective and sort of get inside. You know, but I will say, being able to be on queer sets or being able to start playing roles that hew a little closer to what I've just been trying to discover about myself, and you know, this sort of the strength in my own queerness. It feels really good. It feels like you know, if most of your life feels like high friction, it suddenly feels like things suddenly slide a little bit more. You know what I mean? It's like turning the air on the air hockey table, and you know, that's not to say that.
That's a good analogy.
You love air hockey?
Yeah.
It stresses me out, Serena. It's too fast.
I get really competitive.
I'm sure I would be terrified to play air hockey with you.
I'm not even that good. I'm like knocking it off the board into people's
I
faces
think that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you would just like through sheer aggression, totally whoop my ass.
Though she is small, she is mighty.
She is mighty.
Yeah.
She can really fling a puck.
Sorry, you were saying something like actually important. My apologies.
No, it's fine. I made a very distracting analogy for sure. But so, yeah, you suddenly do feel a lack of friction. You suddenly do feel a little bit closer to that thing that I felt in middle school, right? Where it's like suddenly you're in a theater and suddenly you're like, oh, this is a place that sort of values what I do and who I am, you know? And obviously that has changed and transformed, and you know.
What would being the most valued version of yourself look like today?
I think.
Bring this handhold.
No, I liked it. Just like
We'll stay.
fondling your wedding ring. So I will say, it's hard for me again to take power in like what I look like, because again, like, I don't trust it. Everything is subjective. Whatever.
Okay, but hold on.
Okay, but let me finish. Let me finish.
Yeah. Sorry. Right. It's your
But
interview.
I will say that I think I have a very light-filled soul, and I feel like I am a very alive person, and a very present person, right? Like it's been my solution to it's been my solution to anxiety over all these years, to the point where now like I think it is something that is strong and is a strength within me. And so I think being the most valued version of myself would be engaging in experiences that bring that forth, you know, and being in projects that allow me to use that. And, you know, I think, again, it's a weird time for, it's a weird time for media, as we all know. But, you know, I do think that is the thing that I kind of hold firm. Like, I really do believe in my ability to, you know, look at someone in the eye and make them feel good, you know, and it's
How I fell in love with you.
I mean, listen. She's mine now.
So sorry. It's like excessive.
So sorry.
If you were sitting here, you'd be doing the same thing. You can't help it. It's like
I mean,
involuntary.
ditto. I mean, like, I think, but no, I mean, I think that's, yeah, that's something that as much as my insecurity can get to me, you know, I believe in that in myself, and that's kind of the thing. That's the only thing I feel like that's allowing me to like keep going through, you know, the work and all that, because I'm like I still know that I have something special to offer. I know that I can serve like a story well, you know, like I have these particular strengths, and
how can I bring my spirit to it?
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful, and I think it's such a beautiful way to operate just beyond just the confines of your career, because that's something that you can take into every interaction and every experience that you're having in your life, right? And I think we all know, like, if your happiness is tied up in some external accolade or number in the bank or achievement or award or job or whatever, right? Like, you're not gonna find happiness, but feeling like you can walk through the world with this big spirit and spreading your light, like that's a thing that you have control over, and that is a thing that I think paves the way to actual sustainable contentment.
Totally. And it's also the reason why, again, like I have found dancing to be such a big part of my life now, whether through stud or whether through like, other situations where I might dance for a long time, is that I have felt that it has become an extension of that good thing that I see in myself. Because the amount of times I've had people on the dance floor, come up to me and say, hey, you just have like a good energy. Like, can we like dance near you? And I'm like, yes, let's go. It's again, like it is one of the things that like I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the way that I can bring energy into a space and hopefully make it more positive and more fun and more freeing. And again, and so I think there's still more opportunity for me to show that through my work and through my art.
You said this in an interview at some point, something along the lines of like, I'm not queer because I like dudes. I'm queer because of the way that I walk through the world.
Yeah.
Is this what you're speaking to?
Kind of. Yeah. I think. When I feel at my strongest, when I feel at my most confident, when I feel like I can just be my most authentic self, I feel like that is subversive in a way, and it has been in the past, or it is a subversion of all the pressures that I put myself under, and that we as queer people, again, women, everybody puts themselves under as they're growing up. And so I think that's absolutely an essential part of that, and it's why people call it a superpower, right? Because I really do think like it allows you to see more of the world and to speak to more of the world in a way that you wouldn't if you didn't have to have that, right, that like hypervigilance.
You grew up partly in Denver, right?
Yes.
Before
So I was
Texas.
I was born in Colorado and then moved to Texas in middle school, like the middle of 6th grade.
Culture shock.
Which is like the worst time to be a person anyway. Like to be an 11, 12-year-old is wild, and I don't recommend it.
Skip over that.
Skip over that if you can.
We actually don't have middle school in Canada, and I think it's for the better. Like, it sounds like from everybody else I know, like middle school is just this like incredibly, we just don't go to school for 3 years.
Yeah, I was about to say, is it like elevators that skip the 13th floor? Like,
we just elementary school goes later, and then high school starts.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's. Here's the thing. I can also see that going the other way, which is that suddenly you have 6th graders, famously the worst people in the world, being at the top of the food chain. And maybe that's also kind of dangerous. Yeah. In an elementary school setting.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I got bullied for a couple of years, so that.
But also, I mean, Canadian culture of niceness maybe helps to fight that off.
Not when you're 10.
Yeah. No. It isn't God. But yeah. So I moved.
And you're not out.
No, absolutely not. But I do start to get a reputation for being girly, which was something that I hadn't. I mean, it's so weird because when, I don't think that like, I was gay as, like nobody's gay when they're prepubescent. Nobody's anything,
You're just a kid.
You're just a kid. You just enjoy what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like I really liked playing with dolls with my sister. Because I liked the storytelling.
Yeah, it's more interesting.
Yeah, it's more interesting. They were again forming governments. Like it's really wild. But so that was sort of the first time that I was met with the reality that, and it's because I really liked this girl, and I was sitting behind her in our like pre-algebra class or whatever we were taking in 6th grade. And she was passing notes with this other guy, and he had written to her, "Hey, do you like Zane?" And she was like, "No, he's too girly." And then she looked back and she was like, "Did you see that?" And I was like, "No." Oh. But it's so funny how that was like the first formative thing, because I will say, like, I wasn't a loud person. I wasn't very expressive. So like, it's not like people were coming at me and bullying me all the time, which, you know, obviously puts me miles ahead of so many people who've had to deal with so much, right? But I think that was the first time that I realized, like, oh, gotcha. I have to sand off my edges a little bit. I have to neutralize myself.
I have to police myself a little
Right,
bit.
because right now I am coming off as something different, right? I mean, it's, you know, it's this thing when you're in middle school where people will find truly anything, right? They will
And weaponize it.
Yes, exactly. And so, you know, your survival tactic becomes have nothing, be nothing, you know, like sort of become a non-entity. And I think that was one of the hardest parts about sort of coming out and coming into my own, was trusting that some of those parts were still there and it was okay to revisit them, you know, and to sort of
to let yourself be a full entity.
Yeah. Because even within the queer community, I mean, you know this, like, it's still more valuable to be masculine, right? It's still more valuable to come across a certain way. Like, I know that. I know that that's an archetype that I fulfill, but at the same time, you know, I try not to police myself in terms of my behavior, in terms of how I come across, because at the end of the day, it's not compatible with releasing the light. You know, it's not compatible with showing like the light doesn't filter. It comes out or it doesn't come out. You know, and so yeah, so you know, a big part of my thing is trying to free myself from that, and also career-wise, it can be scary to suddenly be like, okay, because that's the thing, you don't know how big people's imaginations are, and the moment that you come across more femme, right? That's the only thing that people can think about you. And I'm not saying that that's always going to be the case, but I do think it is the case now. And so it's scary to release that part of yourself, or to still show that part of yourself, because it is a very real part of me. You know, like, I feel very comfortable in both my masculinity and my femininity, which I know doesn't necessarily come across when people see me, but
I don't know.
But I think what you've talked to me, and like you sort of know. Yeah.
And I just feel like, can we not just get to the place where we can allow us all, straight, gay, male, female, non-binary, wherever you are on the spectrum, like, can we not just allow ourselves to be all the things? Like,
Totally.
It's like, it's so tired, you know?
Exactly, and I'm sure people are tired of hearing about it. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure we all have better things to think about and talk about.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like. I don't want it to be the top of my brain for the rest of my life, but I think we're still in a position where, yeah, I think it's not the case where anyone can sort of come into a room divorced from, you know, the expectations placed on them, or whatever. And so I'm like, all right, well, then I got to be a little annoying about it.
Hell yes. I mean, you're never annoying.
Well, you know,
be annoying about it. Okay, we're running low on time, and I'm sensitive to that. I'm very bad about timing.
You're such a good host, and I am derailing you.
We could just do it for 4 hours. I'm gonna ask one viewer question because we're short on time.
Okay.
What is your favorite line dance to do?
Oh,
It's tough.
You know what? I think it's 4 on the floor, actually.
Oh my God.
I think 4 on the floor is really, it's that footwork that comes in the go.
Yeah. Some syncopation.
It's the syncopation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always the syncopation.
And it also doesn't kill me in the same way that like Sinwagen does.
Yeah. Sinwagen's a killer.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. Speaking Turkish for anyone who like doesn't know what.
Well, if you're in LA or in New York or in SF, get your ass to stud
I
country.
know, and we have to. It's been. I haven't been there for a while.
We're just doing grassroots marketing.
Exactly. Yeah, you're welcome, Shine.
Okay, we play a little signature segment called "Am I Doing It Right?"
Okay, great.
This is the questions that we are all asking ourselves.
Okay, great.
What's one thing you've sort of spoken to this, but maybe there's something else. What's one thing that you're actively working on right now?
Unclenching.
Like surrender.
Yeah. Or basically being able to balance the hustle, which is good, and I think like a necessary part of getting what you want, with also not hustling towards the things that you can't control.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Right.
so maybe, identifying what I can control,
Yeah.
and focusing on that and letting go of the rest.
This is something that still confounds me, that interplay of like, to what extent should I be driven and ambitious,
Yeah.
and to what extent should I just be leaning into a sense of stillness and being and knowing that it's enough and that I'm enough, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want that to breed complacency, but you don't want to be so focused on the outcome. Like, it's really art.
It's a tough balance for sure.
Yeah.
And
Okay, what's one thing that you are happily bad at?
Ooh, honestly, like a lot of sports. You know, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I think if anything, I'd love to be good at volleyball, but everything else, I don't care. You know, like tennis. Come on.
Who cares?
Who cares? You know?
Volleyball's the thing.
But volleyball's fun. Like, people are always scoring. You know, it's like a cute thing that you can do
It's
pretty
very
much
social.
anywhere. Yeah, it's very social.
Yeah.
I would like to get into that. But yeah, everything else can go.
We got to get you to some beach volleyball games.
I think so. Yeah.
For sure.
We are in Venice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was
That happens here, right?
A lot happens here. What is something that you, outside of the obvious, that you're really great at, that you kill it at? A secret talent of sorts.
I'm a weirdly good like parrot. Like, I can sort of sometimes, and Freud really is the one who is always telling me about this. He's always like, how do you do that? Like, I can sometimes imitate vocal qualities and timbres pretty well.
Oh my God. Does the team know? Does the world know?
That's a good question. Yeah, I know.
You should be leaning into that.
I do have a pretty elastic voice. Yeah.
Do you want to give me something?
No. No, I can't.
Sorry.
I can't. Not on the spot.
I was
But
just like, I'll try to dance monkey you and see what happens.
I know. Well, it's always ever in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
we'll hear something from a random TikTok, and I'll imitate it. But yeah, I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it works.
I have a friend who's very good at voices, and I think he's always really good at voices, but he becomes truly virtuosic when he has certain substances in his body.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm like, can we just start the TikTok right now? Like,
I know. Wait,
you will have a viral following overnight.
That's the thing too, is like, I don't want, like, it needs to be a part of myself that is a surprise and that people don't expect from me, because the moment that people expect a good impression to come out of your mouth,
Oh my God.
it's poot.
Then it bombs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolute poot.
Okay, well, when I come over for Nancy Meyer's movie night,
Exactly.
we'll have enough martinis.
Exactly. You will not be privy to it.
Oh no!
I was talking to the audience.
Oh yeah, it's just for us.
Yeah. Whichever camera I'm looking at.
Thank you for being here. I love you.
I love
So nice.
you. Thank you for having me. What a
Really
delight.
wonderful.
You had so many like notes and stuff.
I know,
hope I didn't.
so ridiculous. This is where I need to do less work, clearly. Yes, one day.
Well, also, you never know, but yeah.
Thank you to my guest, the inimitable Zane Phillips. He's on Instagram at Zanathan.
Yes, and thank you for pronouncing it right. I appreciate that.
I wondered.
Yeah.
And go watch him in everything that he's in. Thank you to my wonderful crew. Thank you to you for watching. Thank you to Zinqué, as always, for hosting us. And thanks to the sponsor of this series, eclipse.video. It's really remarkable software that allows you to edit while you shoot. If you're outside the industry, that means nothing to you. If you're inside the industry, you realize how remarkable that is. It's going to take over the world. We're very excited. I love you. Go hug somebody. Find your stud country, whatever that is. Go find the place that makes you feel like you are most in your power. It is remarkable and life-changing. We'll see you next time.
Bye.